right, clean is the name of the game for this now. The deck surface, I cleaned off all of the old silicone and other material off of that, but don't use an abrasive. Use like a plastic scraper and don't scratch the surface. You can see that it's still got some staining here. That's okay, leave that alone. Now down in here, these water jackets, it's full of the old nasty silicone and carbon and all that junk that I was cleaning off. I'm just gonna use this evacuator here and pull that out. And we'll get rid of that. Gotta go into each one of these holes for the head bolts and blow them out like this to make sure any oil and debris that's in there comes out. Make sure there is zero oil and grease on this deck surface. Blow it off with the air nozzle. The machine shop uses a lot of oil in their processing, so I'm just going to take that off. All right, Ford wants you to put a dab of RTV just here, right in the middle, and a dab between this hole and this bolt here. And that's it, just a dab. Put it on just as it shows from the package with this writing facing up. All right, I'm gonna set it down on these dowels and that'll help me guide it in. Just like that. New bolts from Felpro. I've got some clean engine oil on my fingers and I'm going to lube up the threads on this bolt and also the flange here under the head of it. Like that. You don't want it to be dripping wet with oil. Just want to get it lubed up so that it goes in nice and smooth and we get a good torque reading there. All right, we're going to just start these threads by hand. And we're going to go all the way to the bottom, but no ugga-duggas. All right, here's the service information. It gives you the 5 stages that we're going to go to. The first one is 44 inch-pounds. Okay, we're going to change our units. We're going to go to 11 foot-pounds. That's stage 2. All right, last one with the torque wrench, we're going to go to 33 foot-pounds. Now it's lunchtime. That's the noon whistle. But I am not going to stop what I'm doing. Never stop in the middle of a sequence here. On stage 4 and 5, we're going to do 2 90-degree turns. I've already marked 0 and 90 degrees on there, and this pin right there, that's going to be the needle to show where we go. So I'm just going to put this on my regular ratchet, and we can put our T55 right there. All right, cool. So now I can move this gauge here and then just pin it right here on the side of the head so it doesn't move. And I've got it set up to where the needle is at the 0 degree mark, and then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees until that needle is over here. Okay, this is the last stage. Stage 5, turn additional 90 degrees. Let's have a look real quick. That's the RTV dab that we put on there. You can see that the front cover bolts to there, and that's going to just seal that seam. Same for this side here, so that's why we put that dab on there. Let's install the cams now, but first I've got to lubricate every surface that touches metal to metal. Assembly lube works fine. I don't have any, so I'm just using oil, and that'll work just fine. Here's the intake cam, and we know that because it has this little button sticking out of it. The exhaust cam does not have that, and I'm lubricating all of the cam lobes and the bearing surface here. I'm just going to set it right down here where it goes carefully. These bearing surfaces match up just here to where the bearing caps go. Also, this end piece here, that's going to be horizontal, and you want that above the axis, so up high, so that we can put our special tool on there. All right, remember, we put these cam caps here on the pizza box so that we would remember the order that they go in and the orientation. So for example, this one here, if we were to turn that and put it on the bearing surface here, it might not work. You might get scoring or excessive heat. It could be bad, so we're gonna make sure that the orientation is the way it came off. I'm just gonna go by hand and get these bolts started. I'm not going very far, just starting the threads. That's all I'm doing here. All right, these caps are on. We're gonna go ahead and use our special tool now to line up these cams to make sure they're in exactly the right spot. I'm gonna leave a link to all the special tools that I use down below. It's an Amazon affiliate link, so if you click on it, it does help the channel. It helps me keep making more videos, and I appreciate that. You can use a 23mm wrench on these flats here to turn that cam where you need it to go to make this tool just fit. It's a really tight fit here. All right, so we've got it there now. We can start tightening all these cam caps. I'm gonna use a deep socket so I can reach them just a little bit better, and then we're gonna go down to 62 inch-pounds for that first sequence. Starting on number 1. Take it slow and easy. That way you're not gonna over torque it. Smooth is much better than herky-jerky. You'll get a better reading that way. All right, stage 3 now. We're gonna change our units to foot-pounds. We're gonna go up to 12 foot-pounds on this last stage. Pretty close. We got 11.8 on most of them here. All right, timing chain now. I'm just gonna drape this over the 2 cam sprockets. Back underneath now, I'm just gonna go ahead and put the chain onto the crank sprocket. Just move the chain back a little bit. Tensioner chain guide just has that hole, no bolts. That's gonna go over the top of this little peg. And it pushed it out there, so now the chain is not moving. All right, here we go. This is the seal. We're gonna take that off here on the bench. It's a lot easier to do it that way, I think. Just try to get in there and hook it. Whoop, there it went. So we're gonna leave this out. RTV, the front cover, to the engine, and then we're going to install the new seal using our setup here. If you haven't done so already, make sure this is super clean, all of this surface here. I've just got this front cover here, there's no RTV on it. I'm gonna practice putting it on the engine without touching any of that sealing surface, so that when there is RTV on it, I won't wipe it off. All right, I've cleaned the entire surface of the head and the engine block all the way around the edge where that timing cover goes, to make sure that it's 100% ready for RTV, including here in the middle and that standoff and the one just down there where the bolts are. All of that needs to be perfectly clean, just like the front cover does. Let's go get it. Now we gotta apply this RTV all the way around the timing cover, around the inside of the bolt holes and inside of this groove here. All right, good. Got a little RTV on there. So this is service information here. And it doesn't show RTV going here in the middle, but trust me, this is wrong. You want RTV around all of these bolt holes also. Okay, around each hole. I'm getting pretty close here, so I'm going to take these two top bolts and line them up with the holes they go into. And that's it right there. I can just start those threads just by hand here. And just go all the way around until I run out of bolts. And I can run them in with that air ratchet. All right, here's the service information on that. So the small bolts are 89 inch-pounds and the larger ones are 35 foot-pounds. Down here you can see the order that you should torque them. I'm actually going to use a torque wrench for this because I don't want this front cover to leak. And so I'm going to do it in order and to the book. You can have a look just down inside where that RTV squeezed out just a little bit, not too much. Also some squeezed out here on top and over here on top. So I think we're looking pretty good. All right, let's get this idler pulley on there. Just put up on here like that. Looks pretty good so far. 21 millimeter bolt here. That's it. We're done. No need to tighten it or anything like that. As soon as it bottoms out, that's it. It's bottomed out and then we're done. So that's what you want. You want this to be flush with the front cover, and then the harmonic balancer is going to go through there. We'll lube it up and that'll be what it seals on. All right, put the pulley back on the water pump. All right, finally time for this engine mount. I can't wait to get this thing back to where it's not wiggling around on top of that jack stand down there. Let me go grab that. All right. Okay, you can see that it's down pretty far. That's because the engine needs to be jacked up. We'll do that after we bolt this in. All right, carefully jack up the engine until it's just resting down here. Just gonna run these down a little bit here. Because I don't want to lift the engine with the threads of these studs or the nut. I want to do that with a jack. All right, we got that engine mount done, and now it's time for the harmonic balancer and the cam timing. But that's a really lengthy process. It's a lot of steps, and you got to make sure you do it just right, or you could have catastrophic engine failure if it goes wrong. So that's in a separate video. It's going to be a 16-minute video. It came out last week and there's a link in the description. You can click on that. So to keep this video short, let's keep moving. We're going to go to the valve cover next. I've cleaned out the valve cover, put new gaskets in. Been waiting to get this thing on there. I don't want anything falling in the engine, and now I'm a happy camper. All right, there's the sequence there, and yep, you guessed it, 89 inch-pounds for these 14 retainers. All right, we've got the intake manifold ready to go on with brand new gaskets up here. Now remember, we've got 7 bolts up top here, 1 down here at the bottom, and then before we put those in, we've got a hose connection to make right here with this hose down here. So I'm gonna do that and get this on there. First we gotta fish it down there. All right, the hose is on now. Let me grab the clamp. All right, we got it. Let me pull it just back a bit. We've got to get this EGR tube in the port that it goes into, and we can line up these holes here. I'm using a 10 millimeter with a flexible extension. Some of these holes are not easy to get to. This is the easiest one probably. 13 foot-pounds. Moved the harness over here to give me more room to work. I've got the EGR valve here, and it's got the US emissions gasket on there. This is the California emissions gasket, so you gotta know which kind of car you have. All right, here's the water crossover pipe here. We've got the new gasket on it. It goes right down on the side. All right, we got 4 injectors, 8 new seals, and they're all lubed up, so they're ready to just pop right in there. Got all the hoses connected to the crossover, so let's go ahead and put a new gasket on the throttle body and install that. I like this little flexible rubber installation tool. It helps me to install those spark plugs without banging them around and breaking them. Behind the cylinder head here, we've got all the exhaust studs have been put back in, and the studs down here have all been reconditioned. See how shiny those are? I used the rethreader kit from Lang. This is a fantastic kit. It's got metric and SAE. I used the 10 millimeter for that, and now these nuts are gonna go on super easy. All right, now I've got room for the exhaust manifold, hopefully. Let me get that and we'll fish it in. Okay, manifold first, and then the gasket. Just need to twist it to get those O2 sensors past everything. There we go. All right, here's the order we're going to torque them. Start in the middle and just crisscross around that manifold. Tighten them to 41 foot-pounds. We're going to install this mounting bracket underneath the manifold. That's what mounts it to the bottom of the engine here. All right, got to do it. This is the heat shield for the manifold. It's not fun getting it in there. Kind of a puzzle, but we got to do it. All right, so I got it here. This is the exhaust manifold gasket. It was kind of sticking out and down, getting in the way. I just pulled it up and I was able to push it in there. So I've got 2 bolts up top, 2 bolts down here, and 1 in the middle. Take your time. Don't break anything. You can do this. You got to get this fuel stuff down off of the cowl here. Carefully, it's all plastic. Okay, this is your fuel supply hose, so we're gonna click it right in here and then push the lock tab up. That's it. Okay, and remember this one goes kind of under the intake manifold or under the throttle body, right there next to the EGR. You just push it till it clicks, like that. Looks like I got these twisted. I think that looks better there. All right, no problem. It's time to put this alternator in there, but I made a mistake and this fuel bracket is in the way. I'm gonna take this shroud off. This is just for cooling. Makes it a little smaller. It's gonna fit, but I just wanted to be careful of those lines. I didn't want to bend those or break those or anything. So the alternator is kind of swinging right here just from the top stud. Can you see that? So now I'm going to try and get this cover back on there. Ooh, you know what? I wonder if this will fit in through the bottom. Oh yeah, that's definitely the way you want to do it. Okay, I got it. And while I was down there, I installed the stud and the bolt and tightened those up. So let me go ahead and grab this nut and put it on the stud up top. All right, and I've got the control cable here. This is just that, I gotta plug that in. Okay, this just clips right in. Let's take you down underneath. I'll show you the alternator right down here. So this is from the bottom. You can see that shroud over it and that duct tube. So I wasn't fooling you. I did put it in there, but man, it was a serious pain. All right, it is now safe to plug in the battery. It's pretty exciting. We're almost there. In case you haven't seen this before, it is a battery carrier made by Lyle. And if you don't have a handle on your battery, this thing does a really good job. There we go. Just a little silicone to help this go on a little bit easier. All right, then we got our vent tube. Back of the valve cover here. Just snap it on. Snap that on. All right, let's go over here now. This is where it all began. Let's go ahead and put that power steering pump back in. I'm going to install this bottom bolt first. The top bolts are going to be holding the reservoir onto the pump, and that goes all the way through into the cylinder head. All right, I've cleaned the reservoir inside and out, and I installed some new O-rings and lubricated those with transmission fluid. Let's get that under here, and I'm just going to slowly put the fitting right there into the pump before I start putting bolts in. All right, it feels like that has a good fit. There we go. Okay, just down here, right here where my finger is, that's where we're going to need to put this high pressure hose. So let me go ahead and pull the cap off of it. Now it's got this new Teflon washer on there. If you're reusing your hose, make sure you replace that Teflon washer. I like it. Okay, this is the return hose. It's going to go right on this plastic nipple that's on the reservoir. We're going to go until the tool stops. It'll just bottom out, and that will make the pulley flush with the shaft, and that's what you want. It needs to be just flush with the end of it. There we go. And it's got this clip back here that goes over that plastic tab right there. All right, the crossover hose goes on here. So before we can start the engine, we're going to need a crank sensor on there. And as I mentioned, Ford says you got to buy a new one. So I bought this one from Motorcraft. And it comes with a crank sensor, a really thick instruction book, and the part that we really need, this is the installation tool. Have a look at that crank sensor. You see how those holes are all ovaled out? That means when you go onto its standoffs here, you've got some adjustment here. That's why we have that installation tool. So it clicked in there. You see that little fork right there, this guy here? That's gonna go over one of these teeth. It's gonna be one of the teeth that's over here. Using some blue Loctite. I like this stick. It's not as drippy. So it's kind of like that gel. I'm just gonna put a little bit on the bolts. All right, so I'm just gonna line up the crank sensor here between the holes, and right there, I felt that fork go over the tooth. So now I can put my bolts in. And remember, we've got this bolt still in here. That's lining it up perfectly at top dead center on cylinder 1, and this tool is lining up the crank sensor perfectly. So basically, this tool right here is the only reason why you had to buy a new crank sensor. All right, let's go ahead and remove that bolt now. All right, the bolt's out. Let's go ahead and plug in this crank sensor. There we go. All right, we're putting some fresh synthetic 5W20 in this engine because we cleaned all of those surfaces, and a lot of those surfaces had silicone and other junk on there. Some of that got down into the crankcase, so I wanted to get rid of that. Okay, so first start, I haven't put in coolant or power steering fluid just yet because there's no belt on it. I just want to start it and give you a chance to hear what it sounds like. This is the first one, let's go. Oh yeah, sounds great. I'm super excited about that. Started on the first try. Awesome. I gotta keep on moving here. I gotta get the antifreeze in there, plus the power steering fluid. And I gotta get the wheel on the car so I can take it out on its first test drive. I know the owner's gonna be super happy about it because this thing has been here for way too long already. Speaking of time, I respect your time way too much, so I'm gonna end the video here. But if you have a question, please leave it down below and I'll answer that for you. Now, if you wanna see that in-depth cam timing video, especially if you're gonna do this job, make sure you watch that. You can click that right over here.